Welcome back to yet another edition of the Wolverine.com podcast. This is our TV version with Doug Skene, Michigan's former All Big Ten offensive lineman. I almost said current All Big Ten offensive lineman, Skene. I don't think you got any
Ooh,
plays left in that body, do you?
that
Maybe
would
one?
be scary. I might be able to make it one play, maybe one.
Okay.
And it better be a play action where I can just come out of my stance, grab onto a guy, and just hang on for dear life.
Hey, I was going to ask you about that. How have the rules changed since you played as it pertains to holding and stuff like that? It used to be like this, not when you played, but then it was anything between the shoulders, and now it seems like anything goes, man.
You know, it's interesting. When I got to Michigan, that whole chicken wing arm thing out here, like that was just changing to being able to use your hands inside the framework of the body. And so we had the benefit of being able to use our hands. And but I don't know that it's changed a lot in 25 plus years or whatever it is since. I watch a lot of offensive line play, and guys that are getting called for holding are out on the sleeves, outside the body, and those are legitimate holding calls. There are some calls where guys will be locked up within the shoulder pad, chest plate. And if a defender tries to get away and you pull them back in, you could get called for holding on that, which is why you got to run your feet and put that guy on the ground, and you won't get called for holding. So I don't know that it's changed a whole lot since the allowing of offensive linemen to use their hands. And quite frankly, it's a good thing. It's selfishly speaking for offensive linemen, that position is hard enough to play because you're doing so many unnatural things with your feet and your shoulders and everything else. They should let them use their hands. And, of course, a good offensive lineman never gets called for holding, Balas. You know
that. How many holding penalties did you get at Michigan? Do you have a count?
I think, and I'm not kidding here, I think it was less than 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that would be 1 or 0.
Yeah, I had I know I had a false start. Of course, you hear about those. Those are never good on film days after the game. But holding, I was pretty good about keeping the hands inside. I was really good with my right hand, and but my left hand was always kind of the guide hand for me. And that was the challenge, was to fire the left hand and get it onto target. But I felt pretty good about my right hand. So as an offensive lineman, your inside hand is the dominant best weapon. So if you're left guard or left tackle, your best weapon for blocking is your right hand. And then if you're right guard or right tackle, your best weapon for blocking is your left hand. And especially in pass blocking, a lot of times you'll see some of the premier and best tackles. If they're really good, they can block you with just their inside hand alone. They don't need that outside hand. A lot of times that outside hand can get you in trouble because you give it to a defensive lineman. They'll pull that shoulder down and find their way around you. So Jansen, watching John when he played, and then obviously Jake Long and the best tackles ever play at Michigan, you go back and you watch their film on pass blocking, the inside hand is dominant.
Yeah. I got to tell you something that I just saw today when I was writing an article. And I was talking to Mike Hart today about Sharon Moore, Michigan's running backs coach, talking about the new offensive line coach and how good he's been with these guys. And you and I talked about Ed Warner, and he did a good job as a technician. He said the way he relates to the kids is unbelievable. They love him. They can tell they're loved. He coaches them hard, but it's tough love. And then he comes back, and then as Moore said a couple weeks ago, then you hug them harder, right? And let them know, which is something I don't think Les Miles ever did with you. He was just kind of tough on you.
Nope. No, he didn't. I got a lot of that tough part, not a whole ton of that love part, until I threatened to kill him, and then I got some love.
Oh, wow. Did you really? In a practice?
Yeah, this is a true story. And I can share this story now because it's many years later. So typically Thursday practices at that time were lighter practices. It was like shoulder pads, helmets, and shorts. And we were going through the routine on a Thursday, and I can't remember who it was. It was a linebacker or something that came through at like full speed, and I missed the block or something. And Thursday practices are supposed to be real sharp, real tight, no mistakes. Perfection is what you're going for. You're trying to really get the game plan and your plan right down to the nitty gritty. And I missed a block because some dude, was going at a speed that we were not going at. And Les lost his mind, like freaked out, like screaming. And it was a big production. And he's screaming at me. And I shot him a look, right? I gave him the look. And he knew what the look was. And it was like, he's like, you and me after practice. I mean, you and me Skene. We're talking after practice. And I was so pissed. And I remember practice ended. The Coach Moeller talked to the team. Everybody went inside the building. And it was me and Les on the field afterwards. And he's like, come on over here. You and I, we're talking right now. And before he could say anything, I said, I'm going to kill you right here, right now. I'm going to kill you.
Great.
And he looks at me like, whoa. And I'm like, I'm so sick of this stuff, and I was really, really emotional and really angry at the time. But I threatened to kill him. And that moment changed a little bit for Les and I, because he's like, whoa, man, I'm on your side. We're on the same team here. And I was like, well, it doesn't feel like it right now. It feels like, one guy goes at one speed and I missed a block. Yeah, okay, I missed a block on that play, but I feel like I'm being treated like a total second-class citizen on this team. And I was ready to swing my helmet and just kill him right there. But we had a good talk. It was a good conversation. And the rest of that season, this was my last year at Michigan. The rest of that season felt like Les and I were on a better spot. And then, of course, later on, in the relationship with Les after we left, we had a couple other candid conversations. And I grew to appreciate the challenging nature of the way he coached me and why he did what he did. And so, you don't always understand these things when you're younger, Balas, and coaches are tough on you. But back to Coach Moore, the tough and demanding part is the easy part for coaches. The hard part is for them to show the love and the respect and the camaraderie with the players without perceiving to be soft, without making them feel like, ooh, you don't have to be held to a high standard. And it's good to hear that Coach Moore is finding a way to have that same impact on these young men that are playing offensive line now, because it's critically important. Because these lessons that these guys are learning on the practice field and on the game field, when they're done playing football here in a short few years, they're going to use these same experiences to guide their personal lives as fathers and husbands and business leaders and whatever the heck else these guys go on to do. That's why it's important that Coach Moore do what he's doing now.
These guys are playing hard, man. We watch it, and they're not perfect, but they're pretty damn good in a lot of ways. We've seen some more dominant blocks in watching film this year than we've seen in a long, long time. Guys that are burying people. Andrew Stuber. Andrew Vistardis is my choice for most improved player of the year, not even close on offense. Zach Zinter has been hurt, but these guys are trying to play when they're banged up, too. These guys aren't looking for reasons to sit. They're trying to play for their teammates, and that's huge. And the stat that I was going to tell you about, buddy, 6 total yards lost by the running backs, the top 3 running backs this year. Remember when we were doing the Brady Hoke breaks all year? 6 total yards lost. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I double checked to make sure that was accurate. Now, if you'll remember, in the Brady Hoke era, when they were leading the country in tackles for loss allowed, and you're thinking, how in the hell is this happening? And with all due respect to Daryl Funk, that was just not a good group. And those guys were never really on the same page. But I get that a big part of that, and I called it the Mike Hart effect, right? These guys are getting hit and falling forward yards after contact, so on and so forth. And Hassan Haskins is tough to bring down behind the line of scrimmage. Blake Corum, keeps his feet moving too. But that says something about the offensive line that, hey, you're getting that initial push here where when these guys are getting hit at the line of scrimmage, when that's the first place they're getting hit, then you're just not going to lose yardage.
No, you're not going to do that. But what a testament to this offensive line. And I think it goes back to a little bit of the Ed Warner effect here and what Coach Moore has been able to build upon that Ed left behind in his departure, and the simplification of what these guys are being asked to do up front. You and I have been breaking this down all year long. What do we see most of? We see when it's running the football, we see a lot of gap down blocking, or you're pulling around to the front side. We see some zone blocking. We see guys pulling from all different spots. It appears that these guys know exactly where their help is coming from. And then in pass protection, the protections look simple, Balas. It's pocket style where the protection is set one way. Vistardis is either going right or left. And whatever back is left in there to block, he's going opposite. And they're working together with simple protection and blocking schemes. When you do things on the simple level and you keep it easy for guys and you let them worry just about their technique and how they're doing it, they can get pretty good at it. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah. Now there are still some issues with the twists, right? And some of the games inside, and we've seen that, not a ton, but from veterans, probably a little bit more than you'd like to see. Am I right?
Yeah, and it's such a subtle difference. It's such a minor difference. The difference between successfully blocking a twist and unsuccessfully blocking a twist is a fraction of a moment, and just getting your shoulders turned to the sideline or keeping your shoulders and hips more square. The first guy that makes the first move on the twist move, you flatten him off, you've won half the battle, more than half the battle. You can't let a defender get to the inside hip of the guy playing next to you. And so if we just fix those two little things, flatten off the first twister and then keep the shoulder square for when the looper comes around, you're not out of position. This will be fixed. They're not that far away from it. And we've seen them do it correctly. It's just that some of the pressures that McNamara has had is where we have not done it correctly. Going back to the Nebraska game, early in the game there, Vistardis just got turned to the sideline to his right. And when the looper came back around, it was too late. You can't flip your shoulders on a dime like that because you're turned in the wrong direction. So it's a subtlety, and it's something that's easily practiced and fixed. And it's one thing that they're going to have to do as the biggest challenges lay just ahead.
Andrew Stuber and Andrew Vistardis, to me, are probably the top two linemen through 6 games. I'm guessing Zinter will be up there when he's healthy. He's going to get that club off, it sounds like, pretty soon. Wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw a couple of guys rest for this game, if you can get away with it. And we'll talk about Northwestern here in a second. But to me, those two guys, and then that left side needs a little bit of work. And I know Trevor Keegan's had a shoulder injury. Ryan Hayes, I think, has been a little bit inconsistent. Needs to be a little bit better there. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, I think it's in combination. So specifically when the pass blocking issues that those two have had, I think of the one play in the Nebraska game where their defensive linemen split us. It's so critical in pass blocking that these guys get the correct spacing between them and they use their hands together. Because just like we saw on that one, the one sack that we gave up to Nebraska there on McNamara there, that was simply because the way they took their pass set wasn't efficient enough so that when that defensive lineman made his move to his left, Keegan didn't get an extension on his arms, didn't protect his tackle's inside hip, and Hayes's inside hip was too far forward. So again, real subtle things that together those two can work better to protect each other, and both of them will look far better than film than in those moments where they don't look all that great. But I would say it's fair to say that if you took the offensive line and cut it in half, the right side of the offensive line was Stuber, and Zinter over there overall has probably performed a little bit better than the left side. I think they've done a nice job across the board this year, including some of those tight ends at times. I think the tight ends could be better than they even have been so far. But I think you're right. And the left side could use a little tightening up, but it's not because they don't have the athletic ability. They certainly do. And I can only imagine what it's like to try to play with a bad shoulder. That would be very painful and something tough to get through a season with.
Yeah, because you didn't have that back in the day, right? What was your worst injury? Sprained knee?
Stingers. I had a sprained knee and I had stingers. I never had an ailment where every time you go to contact a guy, your shoulder might pop out or something. And I don't know what's wrong with Keegan's shoulder, but shoulders are very painful when you're an offensive lineman because you're getting jammed up on every single play.
Right. Yep. And it took Chester McLaughlin to finally get you out of the NFL. So falling on your knee. So
Right.
I'm just glad you're walking again. And God, that could have been, looking back at Chester, I was looking at some pictures the other day. That could have been a hell of a lot worse there, Skene. I'll tell you that.
So. Thank God I was wearing a knee brace. Otherwise, I may have lost my lower leg.
Yeah, seriously. And remember Grant Newsom's injury against Wisconsin a few years ago. And now that's why Michigan's linemen all wear those braces. So let's talk a little bit about McNamara here. He's still getting a lot of heat from some people on message boards. And I get it, message board guys, they probably did one of those Bud Light commercials, Mr. Angry Message Board Guy or something like that, So, but if you look at him, what's his role in avoiding these sacks? They've been sacked twice. He's been sacked once. And for the most part, it's not that he hasn't been pressured at all. And let's be fair about that, because there have been times that it's been a little bit leaky in there, or guys have gotten to him. Even in the Nebraska game alone, I counted a handful. You used to count that for me. I guess now that you're big time You don't need to do that anymore. It's not part of your job description. I'm going to have you do that from now on. But to me, he's done a great job getting rid of the ball, and sometimes it doesn't look pretty. He'll throw one into the dirt or something like that, but he's not forcing the ball, with the exception of one time. And to me, not only that, he's engineering drives. Skene. There's another thing. When they're backed up, when's the last time you remember them punting from their own end zone? Because he's getting them out to either flip the field. They had 280+ yard drives, maybe 90, close to 90, against Nebraska alone, where you're thinking, okay, that's amazing to be able to drive the field like that. He's done a pretty good job, in my opinion.
Those drives are off the charts impressive. But when you're backed up inside your own 10-yard line, the goal for us was always, at a very minimum, 2 first downs.
Okay.
If you're down inside and you get a 1st and 10 in your own 5, you got to get 2 first downs before you're allowed to punt. Anything beyond that is a great success. So I think there's a couple statistics that we can look at McNamara to see how good this guy's playing without the home run, deep balls that are home runs. The turnovers. This guy's got 1 bad pick through 6 games. Comparatively speaking to previous quarterbacks that we've watched at Michigan, that's incredibly good. 1 sack that I know of, Balas, right? 1 sack through 6 games. Part of that's on the offensive line, obviously, but part of that, when the offensive line has leaked pressure and caused some issues in the backfield for his vision and comfort to find the right guy, he's getting rid of the football and living to play for the next down or the next series. 1 sack and 1 pick through 6 games. Are you kidding me? How good is that? Let's go back a couple years. Let's go back 3 years. Let's go back through really any of the Harbaugh years. If you told me that your quarterback through 6 games was going to have 1 sack and 1 pick, I think everybody on this chat right here watching, or you and I talking, would say, I'll take that every day of the week. I think McNamara is undervalued for the way he manages the position and the way he's running this offense. And yes, some of the deep balls are not perfect. But if you look at the ones that are misses, they're not gifts to the defense. It's a miss just out of reach of the receiver that's intended for, or just over his shoulder, where the only person that could possibly catch it is our guy. So deep balls are not the easiest thing to throw, and he's damn close on a lot of them, and some of them he's connected on.
Yeah.
The other ones where the balls are thrown into the dirt, sometimes those are because he's getting rid of the football. So yep. I'm totally off the reservation here on this when it comes to criticizing this young kid, because I think he's doing a hell of a job.
Yeah, and he's 6-0, and that's the bottom line, and it's not in spite of him, as some people would like to think. So your thoughts on the rest of the Big Ten? I still think Ohio State's conference to lose. I think they're probably going to run the table. If you had a gun to my head and said who's going to win this conference, I'm saying it's going to be Ohio State, number one. Number two, though, the fact that Michigan's going to be going into October 30th, very likely with a great opportunity here, and probably more than that, even if they lose to Michigan State, and we'll talk about that game in a second, you're going to go into Penn State a couple weeks later with probably a pretty good opportunity to still be a one-loss team and play Ohio State for a championship. So, but what have you seen from the rest of the Big Ten and where do you have Michigan finishing? I'm afraid to ask because this is the guy that I'm going to tell you again, predicted 5-7 before the year. That was based on the culture and some of the things you'd seen. It's very clear that those things were fixed. So Skene probably would have picked at least 6-6. But your thoughts on the rest of the Big Ten as you see it so far?
I see outstanding sides of the football. I see Ohio State with an outstanding offense. I see Penn State with an outstanding defense. I see Michigan State with a really good offense and offensive weapons that are as good as I've seen them have in the last 15 years. But I don't know that I see the complete team that is dominating offensively and defensively. And because of that, it makes it interesting. The game's coming up in this weekend and the next couple weeks here and for the balance of the season, for that matter, will make this fascinating to see how it turns out. Ohio State, I think, is the most explosive offense in the league. I don't think anybody would argue with that. Penn State's defense is really good. And so how is Michigan going to handle those things? So, but the common denominators are there to have success. Don't turn the ball over. Don't give up big plays and make a few first downs and play good football. You'll have a chance to win, especially when you don't turn the ball over, which Michigan is not doing. But I do agree with you that in this age of college football, offense wins the day, and because it feels like Ohio State can score 50 points every weekend without problems, you think you got to put them in the catbird seat to win this league. But that doesn't mean that these other teams, Michigan State, Penn State, cannot get this done against those guys, because clearly they're not invincible.
Yeah, they aren't, but they are improving, and that's what they do. You look at it, and so I guess for 1 week has Northwestern, who beat Rutgers 21-7. I've taken a lot of heat too for saying I think Pat Fitzgerald Gasp is a good coach, and everybody says, the Big Ten West sucks, and he's had 3-9 seasons. Well, yeah, he's at Northwestern, right? He's also had 3 10-win seasons in the last 5 years, I believe, and last year 7-2 and win the West. And really played a great game against Ohio State in that championship game. They didn't win, but they were in that thing in the fourth quarter, which is more than you can say about Michigan the last 2 times they played them. So your thoughts on this game coming up? I'm not looking past it, but this is a Northwestern team that just doesn't have a whole lot of team speed. I don't doubt that they're going to play hard, but Nebraska waxed them 56-7 a couple weeks ago, and I just think Michigan's got too much. It's hard for me to see how Northwestern's going to score in this game.
Yeah, unless Michigan comes out and does not meet their own expectations. And I'm talking about turning the ball over, playing lackadaisical defense. Short of that, Michigan should win this game with ease. And this is clearly a Northwestern team that doesn't have the talent at the quarterback position, at the running back position. You think back to the best Northwestern teams that Fitzgerald has had over there. They're all kind of the commonplace, right? A quarterback that plays smart football. You got a receiving core that can make a play or two, and a running back that's pretty good. And oh, by the way, an offensive line that can block you. They had one of the top offensive linemen in the country last year that's no longer playing for them. So it looks like maybe Northwestern's in a transitional period between a good team with a high roster talent, and now they're taking a little bit of step back, getting some growing pains, but they'll be back. I agree with you that Fitzgerald has proven himself to be one of the better coaches in the Big Ten with the talent that he gets. And so what I would expect for this Saturday is for them to play with a high level of effort for sure, but we just have more talent on our football team. We got something going here that they don't. The motivation for them is different. So they're looking to come in and spoil the season on us. And if Michigan's not careful, they'll be in a dogfight. That wouldn't surprise me, because these still are college age guys, and everybody's telling Michigan you're going to blow the doors off. That always scares me, because these kids are reading this stuff. And so if Michigan comes out Saturday and plays like a championship teams against inferior opponents, the game should be pretty much over with by halftime. And that'll be a great indicator to watch to see if Michigan absolutely crushes Northwestern and takes care of business. Let's hope that doesn't happen, but there should be some variation of that this Saturday, whether it goes by halftime or by the end of the game. Michigan should win this game by multiple possessions, 3 or 4 touchdowns.
And you just used a variation of Notre Dame's "play like a champion today" sign that you wish that you could hit on the way out of the locker room.
No, Balas, the championship teams. No, I didn't say anything. You're the one who's bringing that Notre Dame back. You can see this.
I'm going to buy you a copy of Rudy on VHS for Christmas. And so hopefully you still have a video cassette player, because I got Rudy in the garage there. So also I want to make it clear that Doug Skene did not kill Les Miles. Les Miles went on to a successful career that got a little bit torpedoed there later in the end. We won't talk about that, but he did a hell of a job for you, coaching you guys up. There's no question about it, and did a lot of great things for Michigan. So he's Doug Skene, Michigan's former All-Big Ten offensive lineman. Skene, thank you. We will talk to you after the game on Sunday, then look ahead to Michigan State. Going to be a pretty interesting affair coming up a week from Saturday.
Yeah, that'll be fun. All right, so let's get rid of the Northwestern Wildcats and then look forward to that big showdown in East Lansing. Go Blue.
Thanks, Skene.